Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Here we are, episode 99. We left this until 99 to have Rizanne Oosthuizen with me on the show. So really excited to have Rizanne with me and to close out our Women's Month celebration here on Virtual Coffee with Francois. And I really want to thank all the wonderful guests that we've had. And we will continue to have, women guests on our show, as well as, I think I've been hearing so much the last few days and weeks actually, that it's not so much always just about diversity in terms of we have to have women and so many men, and then we need guests of color and all of that. So it is about that, but it's also about diversity of thinking, and that is something that I heard last night in the Advice Tech Summit, it really struck home for me to just hear like diversity of thinking, and that's really what everybody is bringing to the table. It's not so much just about all the other stuff that we tend to focus on. It is this added benefit of getting different viewpoints and insights into how different people experience it. And somebody was saying last night that we need to look at it from a perspective where the way that advice is put together must be representative of what the world looks like, and that is quite an interesting sort of viewpoint. And I really was interested, and I want to look more into that, and definitely let the show play a role in getting that message out. So this afternoon we've got in the house Kobus Klein. There we go. He says great to see Rizanne on the show as well. I've got Jaco Roots. Jaco, good afternoon. He says you both are making a real difference in our industry. Rizanne, thank you for your amazing Profile Me card you finalized this week. Awesome. I saw you were sharing that, Jaco. So amazing. We've got Denise and Malcolm in Cape Town. Good afternoon, guys. I hope you are both well. And Tinus Brits. Tinus, welcome. En I say luister graag en sterkte vir vanmiddag. Unfortunately, so I only have water. I don't even have coffee. And so I am a little bit, on the disadvantaged side, I guess. But let's see how this goes. So if you're here, say hi, share the video, share the live show so that others know that we are here. If you've got some people on your WhatsApp, let them know that they need to come and watch. Share the link that I shared with you yesterday, and let them join us for this live show. And obviously, if you're watching this recording, thank you very much. I appreciate it always, and we will definitely love to see you here live as well. So we've also got Leona Lee Davis. Hello, Leona. Nice to see you. And Carol, welcome as well to the show, and for joining us live and for saying hi. So if you're here watching, say hi and join in the conversation. I think that is one of the biggest things with the show, is that we created this community where we can really share with one another and, just be part of something that, we're forward-looking, we're positive, we're looking for opportunities, different ways of doing things. And, it's always nice if you've got like-minded people doing that with you. All right, so just quickly before I introduce Rizanne to you, for those of you that don't know her yet, on Tuesday we are celebrating episode 100. And that's going to be obviously a very special one. And I'm very excited to announce my guests for the show. And Kobus Klein has been so kind to introduce me to this person. And as you may know, about the Lebanon, the explosion that was there, that Najis actually, he's an advisor there, and I'm really looking forward to have him on the show and talk to him. It's like just, we're going to talk about, like, you got to make the best of your circumstances and just push forward. So really looking forward to that conversation and all the lessons. He's also an MDRT member. So, through all of this, and this isn't the first time that something like this or like all of the stuff happening in Lebanon, so it's not the first time that they've got to rebuild. So really looking forward. I think there's so many lessons we can learn from that, and just get inspired by Najis with his, his whole view on the thing and his whole mindset and just how they just keep going. So really excited to have him on the show. So join us on Tuesday at 8 a.m. That's the 1st of September. Which also then happens to be my anniversary, my married to my wife. So join us for that, and let's celebrate 100 episodes live together. That'll be really, really awesome if we can do that. Then we've got my old friend Andy, Andrew. Nice om jou hier so te sien, my vriend. Hoop het gaan goed daar by jou. Thanks, Carol. Yeah, wow, 100. Can you believe it? It came so quickly. And JD, goedemiddag. Welcome. Nice om jou hier te hê. And yeah, so let's start the show. So let me introduce to you my guest this afternoon. Some of you may very well know her and may have spoken with her, or you've at least heard me talk about her. You may have listened to her on my podcast. So yeah, really excited this afternoon to have Rizanne Oosthuizen with me. Rizanne, good afternoon and welcome to Virtual Coffee with Francois.
Thank you, Francois. It's a privilege and an honor to be here and to be here with the community that I'm also a part of.
Yes, you've been a very active member of this community, and you were there also from the start. So yeah, very nice. Always if we can speak to some of the guys that really, and ladies, it's like a legal contract. When you say guys, it includes everybody. But so happy to have you with us and for taking the time. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. You've got a very inspiring story and a very interesting story. We spoke a little bit about it in the podcast, but I really want to get a bit deeper into everything that has happened, in your journey, and to see where we are and talk a little bit about Profile Me, obviously, and how that came about and all that good stuff. So really a full afternoon. So let's get started. Rizanne, if you can just do a brief little introduction about yourself, who you are, and what it is that you do, and then I'll get into the rest.
Thank you, Francois. I think at the core, if you had to strip absolutely everything away, who I am, I'm a creative and I'm a designer, and I've got a passion for user experience and innovation. And I work in the branding and the brand strategy space. If you would have seen a lot of QR codes going around on LinkedIn, that comes from Profile Me. Profile Me, I'm also the founder there, and that is built especially for the financial services industry.
Yeah, amazing. And I must say, so there's quite a few of our community that are actually Profile Me clients and that have a Profile Me card. In Kobus's episode, he shared a lot about that. And I know there's a few others. Hugo Blom is also one, I think, that's on there. I myself have now got one. So yeah, it's amazing. And it's really, I think, a tool that is very, but it is, in my mind, indispensable. But it is, the more people are becoming aware of it, the more indispensable it's going to become. And the bigger the impact it is that it's going to have for financial advisors. But let's start with, where did things start for you? It's interesting because I think, in some of my episodes, I spoke about it's so important to have a creative hobby. But you went and you make creative your profession. So you do it for money, I do it for sanity. But where did all of this start for you, Rizanne?
Francois, I started in the advertising industry. I studied at an advertising school. These schools are specially built so that they can train people to cope with the demands of the advertising industry. It's a demanding industry. So it's built on real life case studies that you work on. So I started there, and I come from this advertising background. And when I entered the workforce, I was very lucky to land in an agency where we worked with big corporate and with big brands. The very first project I worked on was Metropolitan Life, actually. And also the agency worked extensively with Old Mutual. There's a lot of other brands that we worked with as well, but just because these are in the financial industry. And yeah, I remember back in that day, when it was AGM season, we knew we had to stock up on energy drinks, and it was going to be a lot of late nights and takeaways at the agency studio to get these AGMs done for these various entities. So it was quite a tough one. And yeah, I was there for over 5 years, moving through the ranks and gaining experience with big brands, and also gaining experience in brand activation, which was really, really interesting. At that time, it was just when one of our clients was JTI. So at that time, it was just a time where cigarettes could not advertise, and they had to get into a way of how to actually get to the end consumer. So figuring that out, and the events that we had put together for that was actually quite interesting. I must say, it's amazing experience that I picked up there in that time and moving through the ranks there.
Yeah. And it's so vital, those early days in one's career, because I think there's two things that's happening. Obviously, the learning curve is quite exponential, and you learn a lot of stuff. And being able to get exposed to that early on in your career is awesome. But then also it allows you to sort of figure out what it is that you really like and that you don't like, because at that point, we're all very clever when we're young, but it doesn't mean that we know exactly what we want and what we don't want. I think there's very few of us that would actually be very clear from day one. So that's sort of the benefit. But if I get into what it's like to be a creative professional, really working in that space, as I said, I do it for fun and sanity. My design skills, everything I do myself, and then sometimes I ask you to crit my stuff and tell me what can look better. And usually I have to redo the thing. But why specifically like the creative profession? What is it about that really speaks to you?
Sure. I really love that quote. Art is the highest form of hope. I think for me, coming from difficult younger years, art gave me a way to make meaning out of the world and to make sense out of the world. And through design, I mean, design is something that's highly structured. You have a structured outcome, and you also have control over that outcome. So for me, design was just as a way for me to in a place that was like really a lot of chaos, a way for me to make sense of the world around me, and also, contribute to putting something that has meaning and purpose out into the world. And it also makes a positive impact when it's actually, it's functional, and it makes the world, makes the world pretty or beautiful, and it makes the world a better place. And I think, if you look around you, your lamp, your desk, your laptop, these are all items that are engineered, but you need design. It needs to be encased in design so that humans can interact with it, and it also needs the design itself gives it context and meaning of where does it fit into my world. I mean, you get several different kinds of lamps if you think about that. There's a reason for that. So that is where design comes in, to really, how we interact with things and give it context and meaning of how does it fit into my world.
Yeah, and I mean, is the creative profession, is that an easy thing to be in? Is it an easy profession? Does it come naturally? I can tell you one thing. When I created the thumbnail for this episode, it is the first time that I went directly to the one I wanted, and it worked. Usually I go through 100 of them to decide which background I'm going to use for the image. But with you, it's like I knew where to go, and it actually worked perfectly, in my opinion. But is it an easy profession, to be in? Is it easy to come up with these designs and create things that are really, because it also needs to be functional. It can be beautiful is one thing, but being practical and functional and easy is quite another thing. So is it an easy profession?
I would say it's not for everyone, definitely. And I think if you've heard the term, people saying they gave birth to an idea or something like that, there's a lot of truth in that, because it is for one, it's a journey, and for two, there is a certain amount of pain and agony that comes with it. When you're a creative, from the client, you're given a jumbled, amount of information that needs to speak both to the client and it needs to speak to the audience as well. So working through that information is quite a process, and doing the problem solving, it comes with pain. If you can think about it, it's like, if you can imagine it in your mind, it's like this massive sea of dots. And your job is to make sense of all of these dots and draw a straight line through all of them so you can connect point A to point B. So that is really, really what it is about. There's an incredible amount of problem solving and creative constraints that you need to work with. So no, it's not always easy, but it's incredibly rewarding.
Yeah, nice. And I mean, that's sort of my next question. So how does all of this make you feel? It's like, because I think when it comes to design and being creative, there's a lot of emotion involved there as well, and we all have our stuff in our work and whatever it is that we do, our professions and, our relationships and all of that. But, how does all of this stuff make Rizanne specifically feel if you do all this stuff and then, how do you feel at the end of the day?
And for us, I would say it's an incredibly rewarding feeling to make something and build it, and it's useful, or it adds value and purpose to the world. But being in this space, you also there's a certain skill set that you need. So and this is funny because I've done my Clifton Strengths Finder, and when people hear that empathy is in my top 5, I get, oh, shame. Oh, no wonder. And it definitely, it's a difficult one to have in your top 5. It creates a little bit of other problems when it comes to business. But, having that empathy in there, it allows you to put yourself in other people's shoes. It allows you to see things from a different angle. It allows you to imagine how that person feels. It allows you to kind of gauge how would that person feel if A, B, C, or D happens. So that really, really, allows you to do your job quite, I think, a little bit better. In terms of that, so you've got to really, put yourself in that person's shoes, and just with, I mean, right now at the moment, there's just so many great things, technologies going on. There's a lot of business concepts. There's a lot of innovation happening. So designing solutions, that serves a purpose and solves problems is ultimately what inspires me and drives me. And so overall the feeling is it's exciting and it's innovating.
And I'm just standing here thinking now, like, I mean, to create once is sort of like cool and easy, but to do it over and over and over and over and over again is quite a feat. So where do you look for inspiration? I mean, I just want to share this with the community. Like, you helped me to do my rebranding of my business, which we're still about to launch. And this was a very simple thing that I asked Rizanne to do for me, is to say, Rizanne, I need to decide on colors. I need to decide on what the brand name is going to be, and I need a logo. And then we'll build the website from there, and we'll do all the other stuff that needs to happen. But that is sort of the first thing, and you need to help me tell the story. And I've had, like always, like most like new businesses, I went on, and what did I do? I created my own logo, right? That's the green the green box with a white F in it. Very, very original. Thank you, Woolies. And so that's what I did. And when I said to Rizanne, listen, I want something that if you look at it, it really gives you a sense of what the business is about, what we are all about. And the second thing was that I wanted to split the business from myself, because at the moment there's no distinction between Francois the person and Francois the business. So that's what we've done. And just the amount of iterations and all of the things that you looked at for inspiration and all of that stuff amazed me. No one has ever done that for me. So I mean, do you do like that kind of level of stuff with every single project? Like, where do you find all this inspiration just to keep going and just to keep on, I think, innovating also in what it is that you're doing?
Yeah. Francois, ultimately it lies with your subject matter. I think if you look at artists, they're inspired by certain subject matters, and you've heard the terms muses and all these kinds of things. So, when it comes to design and you're actually doing it in a in a way, of a functional design. You have to look at your subject matter. So you would be the subject matter. In this case scenario, you would have been the subject matter. And I need to find inspiration in you. And I need to find the things that inspires you. And that journey of discovery ultimately is inspirational. So, and that's how you come to these things. And that's how you come to new ideas and new conclusions. If you just look at the world around you, there's so much inspiration you can get by just observing people and looking at how do they do things and why do they do it the way that they're doing it. There's so much inspiration around us that we can look at. And as I alluded to before, right now we're in a space where there's just so many concepts going around. It's a very exciting time. But these things, all of this technology and business concepts and these things that we are sitting now with, it also comes with a great amount of problems. It also creates problems. So designing solutions for these problems is ultimately, what inspires me and drives me. And as with you, you had a amount of creative constraints. There was very specific things that you did not like. That's always the first thing to establish for me is what does the client not like? That's definitely the first round is usually about that. And then you've got to find out, what has meaning for you and go deeper. Why does it have meaning for you? And then go deeper, that's when the discussion starts. But, is it functional? Is it useful? Is there purpose in it? And, when you can strip nothing more away, that's where you've got a viable product that will serve function and it will get the message across that's needed to get across.
Yeah, and I just wanted like two things. Sometimes there's matter. There's some matter with the subject. I don't know. It's not subject matter, but there's something the matter with the subject as well. But apart from that is that what I sort of want to invite the community and the audience to do is like, as you're talking about this stuff, because we're obviously talking about design and creating and all of that, but it's so easy to pull these things back to what we do in financial services. It is so easy to say, oh, how can I apply those principles in this? Because you just said like the first step, the first meeting is all about finding out what Francois did not like. What is not for him, where are the constraints? And it's exactly the same that we should do as financial advisors or any business person. If you're working with a client, is to understand, because most people, I think, will know what they don't like. The problem is that they don't know what they do like, but they are very clear usually on what they don't like. So that is definitely some good advice of where the starting point should be. So let's then move on a little bit to financial services. Obviously my question is, so if you worked in design, yes, you were exposed to Old Mutual and all of that, but how did you end up, primarily creating a product and servicing basically the financial services industry?
Yeah, to end up here, I needed to actually just first lose everything. So that journey on where I was with working with big corporate and all of that, after that, I did go out on my own. I started my own design agency later on, and I picked up a good big client there. Later on, I started a career branding service, and we wrote over 11,000 LinkedIn profiles and CVs for career branding there. I don't do that anymore, so please don't ask me to write your LinkedIn profile. Sorry, no, don't. That was some years ago. But then life happens and you lose everything. It went great, but something else happened. And, I came back up to Johannesburg. My family's here to pick up the pieces and rebuild my life. And I had to look at what have I got? What have I got to work with here? And I have design. So I absolutely threw myself into studying web design and studying digital marketing, going further into user experience, and I started picking up clients slowly but surely. and they all seem to be in the startup space, like startups. And working with startups, you learn quite a lot, and you pick up a great amount of experience very quickly, because they have so many constraints. That you're working with what they have in the business. They've got limited money, limited time, and limited manpower. And somehow you've got to pull together something that's going to be a brand, but it's also going to be a business that can work and make money, and that can later on, you will grow with them as they grow. So from that, I picked up a advisory client to launch a financial advisory service and related services. And it's exactly in that time that the idea for Profile Me came. And that is when I would say my journey in financial services really started.
All right. So I've had this other friend who's into social media and all sorts of other stuff. And when I tried to get her involved with like helping some financial advisors with all of their social media and things a couple of years back. And one day we were sitting and we were having coffee, and she said to me, "Francois, I'm sorry, but I don't know how in the world, just explain to me, how can you get excited about financial services? I don't get it." But you get very excited. So what is it about financial services that amazes you so much, and then that draws you to this industry? Because when I speak to you, you love this game.
No, I do. There's no hiding that. I fell into the industry by chance, but I took it like a duck to water. I think maybe also because there's just so many constraints, and there is just so much you can structure and create meaning out of. If you look at it, you've got it's an incredibly complex ecosystem. You've got the big corporates, then you've got your small to medium enterprise businesses, your advisories and franchises. Then you've also got the financial advisor on entrepreneurial level. And then you can throw some legislation on top of that. And that makes one big machine. But they all have one common problem, and that is to serve the needs of the consumer. And if you look at this big machine and the various parts in it and the friction that there is, there's an incredible amount of room for innovation and problem solving, so that this machine can absolutely work together and function better to serve their client better, or to serve the consumer, the needs of the consumer better, and to better, engage and reach their target audience. So I think there's just so many moving parts in this complex ecosystem that is absolutely incredible to work with, and it's ever changing. I mean, with new legislation and those kind of things coming in, it's a machine that's ever evolving. It's not standing still, and it's just always there for the new ideas. It's actually a breeding ground for new ideas.
Exactly. And I think, there are some people who are very good at innovating in this space, and then there's others who this is the way we do it. We don't change. We just go down this road. And I think that is what I love most about working with you is sometimes I have to go think 3 times about what you say to me, because you just think at a different level. And if I can say one thing, it's like that you spoke about earlier about connecting the dots. I don't think I've ever met somebody in my life that can connect dots like you can. It is just amazing. I do catch up at some point, but usually like you can see things long before I can. And it's amazing to have that ability and then to bring that to something like financial services. And I think there's a lot of competition in financial services. Sometimes one advisor can never talk well about another one, and other ones we're all about financial services, about the profession, taking things forward, never having a bad word to say about anyone else. So you have this sort of mix. And my question around that is, is there do you feel that there is a sense of community that most financial services professionals are standing together and they really want to grow this profession and the industry and all of that? What is, as I almost want to say, as an outsider coming in, somebody who didn't necessarily grow up in this space and that sort of landed up in this. What has your experience been, from that point of view?
Frans, I would say, I think, first of all, there is a community, and it's an absolutely incredible community. And those who have not gone to look for it or try to be part of it, you're missing out. And if you look at the community, it's incredible people, and just at the history of financial services as well. It's a community that's literally built on the shoulders of giants. These are people that in history has made an incredible impact in the world. So it is built on the shoulders of giants, and it's a incredible space to find people that you can look up to find mentors that you can lead you to look for advice. I think one thing we so easily do is we would look at something and say, no, I don't agree with that, and I'm out, instead of just waiting. If you, with a lot of I was just to go back, I was very fortunate when I came in that I had some people that I could that I could soundboard off and that I could ask for advice, and they're absolutely incredible people, giants of the industry. And the thing is that you don't necessarily, it's not like you can ask advice whenever you feel like it. It doesn't work that way. Often you just need to observe them and observe what's going on and how they do things and why they do things. And some of the advice they may give you might not always make sense at the time. But if you can just manage to keep yourself quiet for long enough and just get on with things and just see how it goes and plays out, then the answers do present themselves, and you do get to learn, why does this machine work the way that it does? Why is the legislation the way that it does? Why is the community the way that it is? And there is a large amount of positives out of that, and an incredible amount that you can learn. So I definitely think that I've been welcomed into the community really well, and I wouldn't trade the relationships and the people that I've met in the industry for anything in the world. It's some of the most inspiring people I honestly have met, and it's not necessarily that they do things that I could possibly relate with. They do things, in fact, probably completely different. But out of that, I've learned so much, and there's things I can take back and I can implement into my creative practices as well. So yeah, no, definitely, there's a great community out there. If you have not found it yet, you should go look for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've spoken about that, obviously, that, the show is definitely a little community within this bigger community. And we've spoken to Emily Blanche from XY as well around this whole benefit of creating a community, around this. And I think this community also expands into our client communities, where your clients that are within your practice. So there's also an extension of this. It's not only about a community of financial advisors or all the business development people working in this part of the industry, or legal support or marketing or any of that kind of stuff. It also extends to a secondary community, which is our clients. So we actually have a huge community, and we can really have a big impact if we really focus on nurturing that community as well to keep on growing it. So then so now I've got the story sort of. So you started, you had a business, you lost everything, you came back, you sort of sorted out what it is that you want to do. You threw yourself all into social media and marketing and design and all that good stuff. And then you sort of started a new business. And what was that? What was that like? Has it been easier the second time around? Is this the second business? So is that fair to say second, or like? Because I've had multiple ones. So,
Uh,
but is this the second one? And has it been easier now that you've got all this wisdom and knowledge and experience behind you?
yes, I would say it's a second one. And no, it was not easy at all. In fact, it was harder. Um, it was, I think, like any business owner would say to you, and I think as any advisor running their own practice or being responsible for their own practice, it's like the tip of the iceberg. It's that picture of the tip of the iceberg that you often see, and then there's the water, but underneath that iceberg there's a massive structure. It's part of the iceberg, but there's a massive structure going on to support just that little tip, which we often is, we think that's what it is, but that's just what you see. That's just on the surface. Below that, there's a ton of things going on. And I think starting a business, it's an endurance challenge that will test you and your relationships to absolute breaking point. And it requires an immense amount of inner strength to keep going through all of the frustrations and failures that you need to, you need to face. And the second time around, it was actually, I was quite conscious about making the decision to start the business. It wasn't an easy decision for me to make. It was quite a difficult decision for me to make to start off with in the first place.
So I mean, based on that, it's always, there's some interesting stats, and I think I've mentioned this previously in another episode where. And I think it was done in America, but somebody like compared that to South Africa, and they said that the amount of businesses that make it, in the first 5 years or so, are pretty much the same percentage-wise in terms of America versus South Africa, for example. But the difference is that the American guy or lady will try another 4 times before they give up. Whereas the South African does it once, loses everything, and says, "No, a job is better. Let me go find employment." So I can understand that was quite a difficult decision, But I mean, what has made it especially hard for you to take that leap and say, "Listen, let's do this again"? What made it so difficult for you?
First, I think for one, I knew to pull it off, it was going to take. There was it's going to be an enormous effort to pull it off. It was a baby that required an incredible amount of attention, and it was also high risk because it's a new concept, and because I wanted to do it especially for the financial services industry, there was nothing to benchmark of whether it will work or not. So it was really, really, really high risk to do this. And I mean, at the time, I had limited capital to do it, and I also knew there was a lot of sacrifices that I would need to make. Things like living expenses. I would have to just completely cut out on any unnecessary living expenses. Cut out on time with friends and loved ones, and just doing life in general. These are all things that would have had to go. I would have to forgo this if I was going to do that, and if I was going to really put my everything into this to make it work. And I think that was what made it so difficult.
Okay. And I mean, but surely then if you did make the decision to actually go out and then take this leap and say, "Listen, but I've got to do it," what was that motivation? What is it that weighed heavier than this thing that, yes, but I've got limited this, I have to sacrifice so much, I have to do all of this stuff, but you know what? There's something that says like, you got to go do this. What can you identify what that thing is or was?
In one word, I would say to you, feelings. Uh, so that it's just that gut feeling. Something I would I won't ever forget this is when I was grappling with the idea and I was asking for advice, and the person said to me, it's like the dog chasing the car. Um, the dog is forever chasing the car, but if he catches the car, he doesn't know what to do with it. And he went on further to say that most people spend their entire lives looking for that big idea. And you've now got that big idea. What are you going to do with it? Are you going to be like the dog chasing the car? And that really, really made me think. And just from money wise, there wasn't really anything to lose. I had already lost it. And time wise, I was so passionate and in love with this idea that I was literally willing to sacrifice a whole year of my life to bring it to life and to see it through. And the tipping point was definitely, I sat and I thought to myself, if I don't do this, what am I going to feel like? What is life going to be like later when I do see this or something like this eventually coming into play or coming into a different way into play? And that really, from there was no question. It was either taking the leap or die a slow death inside. That is what it felt like. It was something that I absolutely had to do, that I could not afford not to do.
Mm. So did you give yourself only a year? Was that the thing? Because you said I would have to do this like this for a year. And so was that the deadline? Is that the thing that you said, listen, if after a year this is not working, then let me take out the CV and work on my CV writing skills again? Or what did you, or is it just like, it's worth to see where it goes and then decide from there? Or was there like a set deadline for this new business?
No, I think it was a case of seeing where it goes. I think it was definitely a case of seeing it, of where it goes. But you've also have to be conscientious about it. Time is our most valuable commodity. There is nothing that is more expensive than time. And so I did have to, I think, be aware that this is not something that I could ride to death. If you've got that saying, there's no use flogging a dead horse, which I learned very early on in my career. So I definitely think I kind of thought I'll give it a year and then decide. But if it was not viable, I would have pursued a different avenue. Okay.
So take us on that journey through that, the start of, and this is Profile Me that we're talking about now, right? So what has the journey been like early on? And because I really want to listen to like, what are the lessons that came from that, but also first the challenges and then the lessons, and and then we'll get on to where we are at this point.
I think when I started, sorry, I just need to do this. This is really annoying me. I'm really sorry,
You're
but
welcome.
thank you.
You're welcome.
That's lovely about being part of a community. When I started, I was literally, it was like working, it wasn't like, I was working 3 full-time jobs. And I was doing a ton of sales study and a ton of research on top of that. I had very little time as it was. So time was something that, it was a lot of long hours and a lot of late nights. Any money that I generated went back into the business. And there wasn't a lot of money to go around as it was. So it was a year of Marmite and toast. Really, that is what it was. If I went to a braai and there was chops, it was like gold, for me. It was like the biggest treat in life. But looking back now, it was so worth it. But there was a lot of frustrations. You're facing your failures alone. You're charting into new territories. There's not a lot of people that can give you technical or development advice. There wasn't really much for me to work with, and I had to look at global studies and global things to really come to conclusions on what this would be like. And I think that the hardest part of it all really is, when the product's not really out yet, or it hasn't really gained enough traction yet, all of your failures you're celebrating alone, and your successes, however small they are, they have no meaning and context to anybody else, because it's not out there in the world. So that failure that you're feeling, or that success that you're feeling, there's nobody else that can understand it, because it doesn't have meaning and context for them. It's a baby nobody's seen or nobody knows of, and it's your baby that you end up crying over, or laughing over, or cradling at night. So I think that is very hard. It's not an easy thing to do, and especially not if it's in a new kind of space that's uncharted as yet.
Yeah, and it's it's also hard. I think when you're building any kind of business, that you have a vision and you can see things very clearly, and it's almost like why can't people see this? So it's a huge job to get people to see the vision and to really understand what it is that you're doing. And there are obviously some people that will early on say, I get it, awesome, I'm in. And then others need to hear and see it a million times. I mean, I think about some of the software products that I've seen demos of 5 or 6 times. I still don't get it. Other people are like, wow, this is the best thing since Marmite and Toast. So that's quite amazing, And for me, I mean, obviously the question is has it been worth it? All the sacrifice up until now, because I know you and I are very much alike in the sense of we're working day and night, weekends, that kind of stuff. Most of the stuff you did for me happened over weekends. So, has it been worth it so far?
Definitely. I wouldn't trade this journey for anything in the world. The amount of business lessons, the amount of life lessons that I've learned, the amazing people that I've absolutely that I've met and have had the privilege to deal with. It's absolutely amazing. No, I wouldn't trade it for anything in the world, and it's been worth every blood, sweat, and tear.
All right. So,
yeah.
I mean, on that, I'm just thinking, like, at what point does, if you look at the people around you, for instance, so you have a fiance, I have a wife, you have family that surrounds that. And often they will go like, but, why are you doing this to yourself? Why don't you just go get a job? I still get it. And my question is, like, how do you deal with that at the moment? And, has there also been lessons from that? Because one also needs to listen to what they are saying to you constantly. But it's not a question of, oh, you need to give up on this and then go do something else. Or for me, that just fuels me even more. So I just want to I will show you and just stand back and let me go and do what it is that I do. But there's certain people in your life when they start telling you, you know what, I think you're working too much, or you're starting to look tired, or that kind of stuff, Do you listen? Has there been some lessons from that and some things that you've changed because of that?
Just from home front, there's, yes, you make a lot of sacrifices. My significant other doesn't exactly know what I do. He doesn't really understand it. But he's incredibly supportive. So that's fine. And you don't really need your people in your home to completely get and understand and go on that journey with you. I mean, it is a really tough journey, and I don't necessarily think bringing that into the home is always that great. And that is why we have community, and why it's so important to be part of the community that can understand the context of your failures and successes, or the problems that you are dealing with. So if that answers your question, Francois.
Yeah, sorry, I know I put you on the spot there a little bit, but
No,
because
it's
it is
fine.
something, but this is also the case with many financial advisors as well, because they work day and night, and in the evenings they go and see clients. I mean, I had to go see someone in the week in our accounting practice, which rarely happens. We only do it like if there's no other option. And I was out I think I left here at 4. I only came back at 8:30 or 9 o'clock or something like that. So if that happens every single night kind of thing, it's hard, And as you say, they don't always understand, but if they are supportive, I mean, that makes a massive difference.
Yeah.
And if I look at my wife, like how much she's learned about my business and about business in general, and just about like seeing what it is that I'm trying to do, if I see that sort of evolution, if you will, or I don't know what the right word is, but over the last 5 years, if I go back 5 years ago, the conversations we were having versus the conversations we're having now, so I'm very happy that she stuck it out with me so far, and we still go sometimes like, is this really working? Is this not? So you will always go through that and question whether you're doing the right stuff or not. So yeah, but let's get into some messages.
I just want to add to that, like, it is not sustainable to do it like that way. There is a very, very fine balance, but having the right support structure really, really helps. And I mean, I want to just you spoke about people who get it and people who don't. We often think that early adopters are of a certain age, and this is not the case. An early adopter can be of any age. And what makes what I do so worth it, is the incredible support that I've had. And I just want to mention this. The first meeting, Quibus Klein is he's a big supporter for Profile Me. And the first meeting and he's also had his 1-year birthday now with Profile Me. The first meeting that I had with him, just seeing his eyes light up, and he literally just wanting to get into the phone and getting into Profile Me, about what it does and what can it do further and how can he use it. Seeing that excitement makes it worth absolutely every while. And I think if people at home understand that this is what you do for other people, and this is also what enriches your life, then it should be some leeway for you to explore that.
I think you're touching a very important point there, that it's not so much about the business, and it's actually what you create and what you do and the impact that you have and how you help other people. And that's usually where the most satisfaction comes from for me. And others don't see that, because that's obviously an internal thing. And that is what keeps driving me. So it's just like, you got to do this, you got to do that, So yeah, I've been on a journey as well to start to say no. But it's definitely, I think, some of the things that are for me particularly like the biggest driving force behind what it is that I do. And I pick up the same with you. And you know what? If I see the lengths of like what you go to in order to help someone, it is never like, here's half an answer, or here's go read this up. No, you will do like, properly. So, yeah. But I want to get into some messages here, not from fans, but messages, that you have for women in Women's Month. Any particular advice that you can give based on the lessons that you've learned as a woman in business, making it and then losing it and then starting again, reinventing yourself almost, if not, in fact, that's what you did. So any particular advice that you've got?
Yes, I would definitely say for women, don't let your circumstances or where you come from define you. Don't let that dictate the decisions that you make in the present. Expect better, because you deserve better. The ultimate goal is for us all is to succeed at life. It's to succeed at life itself. And we only get one life. It's not like we get to come back and say, can I have it? Can I have a redo? You don't get that. So forget about what you don't have. Forget about the past, forget about the things you've lost, forget about that, and focus on the things that you do have and go with that.
Awesome. And any other advice, Rizanne?
I think from a social responsibility kind of point of view, definitely speak up. It is not necessarily for yourself, but definitely for those that can't. As Jay Naidu and Kate Holmes, the topics that they were talking about, it's in these gray areas of inequality and biases that we really get breeding ground for the extreme end of the scale, which is gender-based violence. And if we speak up, then awareness can happen and understanding can happen, and we can start working towards solving the problem. Just the gray area problems, but also the bigger problems that there are. Without awareness, there cannot be understanding. So we do need to speak up. A woman getting killed in South Africa every 3 hours is simply not acceptable. We have a problem, and we need to start sorting out the small problems that's contributing to the big problem, so that we can have a better future for our kids and our nieces and our sisters and our friends' kids. We really do need to all collectively start being open to speaking up and being open to probably having some uncomfortable conversations. Edmund Burke has a quote, and it says, "The only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing." So let's do something about that.
Yes, amazing message. And Rizanne, I enjoyed this conversation with you. As I said to you before, I can talk with you for hours, I think. And there's so many things that we can get into really in detail about what journeys has been like, and lessons learned and challenges and all the things that happened. I mean, we didn't even speak about like how it happened that you actually got to work at Old Mutual, unless I missed that.
The advertising agency, mowing the lawn.
Yeah. So telling them that you will mow their lawn and then getting hired in a week's time and then staying there for 5 years. It's quite an amazing thing. And I've always said, and I said to you before the show as well, it just goes to show it's not what you do, it's what you're willing to do. It's the person that's willing to do that, to work the extra hour. It's the person willing to cut the grass when there's nothing else to do. So those are the ones that really can change the world. So it's the ones that will speak up and that's willing to put themselves out there that can start to make a difference. And just before we go, just quickly, just remember that on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, the 1st of September, we are celebrating episode 100 with Naji Haddad. And really looking forward to that and talking to him about the experience now recently. But also this one is going to be entitled Life is What You Make of It. And I think it is so important. So really looking forward to that conversation. Rizanne, from me, thank you very much. Now you can go have a weekend. I hope so, because I think you stopped working on weekends, or at least you're trying. I'm also trying. So I'm off. I'm only coming back on Monday. So Monday afternoon. So I will only be available on Tuesday again. But I'm definitely taking a break. I need it like urgently. So, but just from my side, thank you so much. One, for everything that you do. Number two, for being a guest on the show and for being the perfect guest to round up our series for the month.
Thank you, Francois, and thank you everybody else that's been watching and that will be watching. It's been a privilege to be here.
Yeah, awesome stuff. And you're welcome to connect with both me and Rizanne on LinkedIn if you haven't yet. Just make sure she's Oosthuisen with an S, not with a Z. I made that mistake, and she is not shy to let me know that it is with an S, Francois. So please check it out. It's Rizanne Oosthuizen with an S, and go find her on LinkedIn and connect with her. She will definitely be happy to do that. And from my side, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you very much. I will see you on Tuesday.